When did you stop looking forward to things? Not the big things going wrong, the small things stopping. Your favorite song, good news, a night you used to count down to. You'd tell me if you knew. That's the problem. You don't. That's not ingratitude, and it's not the song's fault. It's a specific kind of flatness that has nothing to do with sadness at all. The reward arrives, and something in the system simply doesn't register it anymore. This is different from being depressed in the way people usually picture it, and it's different from ordinary tiredness too. You're not necessarily crying or unable to get out of bed. You still function. You still show up, laugh at the right moments, finish what needs finishing. The problem isn't that life stopped happening, it's that the payoff stopped arriving with it. Picture a bigger version of the same thing. Someone crosses the finish line of a marathon they trained for all year. 12 months of early mornings, sore knees, a training plan taped to the fridge. They cross the line. Someone hangs a medal around their neck. A stranger cheers. And they stand there, hands on their knees, waiting for the wave that's supposed to come. It doesn't, just tired legs and a strange, hollow quiet where the triumph was supposed to be. Here's a way to think about what's actually going on, using something most people already understand about their own phone. When a phone's battery gets dangerously low, it doesn't just die immediately. It switches into a power-saving mode first, dimming the screen, closing background apps, cutting anything non-essential, all to stretch what little charge remains. The phone still works, it just works at a fraction of its usual brightness, on purpose, because the system decided full power wasn't sustainable anymore. Your brain's reward system can do something remarkably similar. There's a real difference in how the brain handles anticipating something good versus actually enjoying it once it arrives, and under enough sustained pressure, the anticipating part is usually the first thing to dim. You stop getting that little internal lean toward Saturday on a Tuesday. The excitement that used to arrive days before an event just doesn't show up anymore, and by the time the event actually happens, there's nothing left to spend on enjoying it either. In psychology, researchers often separate wanting from liking. The motivation to move toward a reward is not the same as the pleasure you feel when you receive it. Stress can interfere with both, but anticipation is often where people notice the silence first. Picture the smaller, everyday version of this too. Someone gets a text that their favorite show just dropped a new season, the one they used to clear their entire evening for. They see the notification, think, "Oh, that's out now," and keep scrolling. Not because they don't like the show anymore, because the part of them that used to feel a small jolt at that notification has been running on power-saving mode for months, and nobody ever told it the crisis was over. There's a reason this dimming happens, and it isn't random. Chasing reward actually costs something. Wanting things, looking forward to things, pursuing things, all of that takes real energy. The kind of energy a body under prolonged stress genuinely doesn't have to spare. So under enough sustained pressure, financial strain that doesn't let up, a caregiving season with no real end date, work that never lets you fully exhale, the system makes a kind of executive decision. Stop generating excitement about things that aren't strictly necessary for survival. It's not a punishment, it's rationing. Think about how strange it would be if a phone's power-saving mode also decided which apps deserved priority based on how much you loved them rather than how essential they were. That's roughly what happens here. The brain doesn't consult you about which parts of your life mattered most before it started dimming. It just cuts whatever isn't tied directly to getting through the day, which is exactly why the marathon, the favorite show, the surprise gift, the things that were supposed to matter most, are often the first things to go quiet. The trouble is the same as it always is with rationing that goes on too long. The emergency ends, but the restrictions often don't lift on their own. Nobody sends the system a memo that says the crisis has passed, so it's safe to want things again. It just keeps running the low-power version indefinitely, because staying dim is safer than guessing wrong about whether the danger is really over. This is where people usually start blaming themselves instead of the mechanism. I used to love this. Why don't I care anymore? Have I just become boring? Ungrateful? Is this just what adulthood is? Those questions feel reasonable because the flatness is completely real, but they're aimed at the wrong target. Wanting isn't a moral trait you either have or lack. It's closer to a signal that gets generated by a system, and that system right now has been told to conserve. It shows up in relationships too, not just hobbies and shows. Someone's partner plans a surprise, something thoughtful, something that would have made their whole week a year ago. They open it, say thank you, mean it in the technical sense, and privately feel almost nothing where the delight was supposed to be. That gap is often mistaken for falling out of love. More often, it's the same rationing, showing up in a place that happens to matter more, which makes the flatness feel a lot more frightening than it actually is. There's also a quiet trap that shows up once someone notices the flatness. The instinct is almost always to demand a bigger reward, a louder distraction, a more expensive trip, hoping something loud enough will finally break through the dimming. Sometimes that works for an evening. Usually it just adds one more disappointment to the pile. Proof, apparently, that even the big thing didn't work, which somehow feels worse than the ordinary thing not working. A gentler approach tends to work better, mostly because it stops demanding the one thing the system currently can't produce, which is a big feeling on command. Instead of asking whether something made you happy, a smaller, more honest question works. Was I even slightly more interested than before? Did 5 minutes pass without me checking the time? Was there 1 second where I actually wanted to keep going instead of just finishing because I'd started? Those questions ask for almost nothing, which is exactly why a depleted system can actually answer them. Small, low-stakes reintroduction tends to matter more than people expect. A short walk without anything in your ears, one song actually listened to instead of playing in the background of something else. A meal eaten slowly enough to notice its texture instead of inhaling it between tasks. None of this is designed to produce joy on the spot. It's designed to give the system a tiny, safe data point that says, this cost almost nothing, and nothing bad happened. Repeated often enough in small enough doses, that data point starts to add up to something like trust, and trust is usually the thing standing between a dimmed system and a system that's willing to spend energy on wanting again. None of this promises the return will feel dramatic. It almost never does. It tends to arrive as something closer to preference than fireworks, choosing to sit outside instead of scrolling in bed, catching yourself actually looking forward to coffee tomorrow, laughing at something and realizing, a second later, that the laugh wasn't performed. Small signals, easy to miss if you're watching for something bigger. If this flatness has lasted a long time or shows up alongside constant low mood, trouble sleeping, or a general sense that nothing feels worth doing, that's worth bringing to a doctor or therapist. Not because wanting things is something you failed at, but because a reward system that's been rationing this long deserves real support in learning it's safe to spend again. Somewhere out there, someone else is crossing a different kind of finish line tonight, hands on their knees, waiting for a wave that isn't coming yet. Maybe the honest thing to tell them isn't that the wave is gone for good. Maybe it's that the system that used to generate it hasn't disappeared. It's just been running in power-saving mode for a while, quietly waiting for someone to tell it the emergency is finally over.